Hi, I'm Bart Herbison, Executive Director of the Nashville Songwriters Association. And this week, the story behind the song for the Tennessean is Crazy for the Girl. Welcome, Jeff Cohen.
Thank you,
And
Bart.
before we get into the story behind the song, I said off camera, you're one interesting cat. You know what impresses me, and I think it's because of you, your soul, and who you are as a human being. A lot of writers have their camps, and they're sort of a posse, and they do their thing. You wear a lot of hats, brother. Film and TV, video games. You open for Bob Dylan. You're tri-coastal. And who is Jeff Cohen?
It's a good question. I ask that constantly.
And worked for BMI.
I did work for BMI. It was a great job.
Which usually when you work in the industry, I don't know, somehow I don't know if you have to listen to so many songs or whatever. I think it drains your creative soul, but that didn't happen.
No, it actually worked in the opposite. In the opposite for me. I mean, it was never a master plan to become a songwriter. I'm going to be honest. I'm not that smart. When I was going to go to law school, and I realized that I really didn't want to do that. I didn't think I was going to be good at it. And I thought I could be in the music industry. But at the time, I just taught myself how to play guitar in college. And I'm like, I'm not good enough on guitar. I know I'm not good enough singing. And at the time, I thought, well, I think I can write a good song, but you can't really make a living writing songs. I didn't know.
Right.
So, but I thought I knew what was good, so I wanted to try to find the next U2 or the next James Taylor. So I wrote to every record label in New York, and no one wrote me back. So I took a temp job in the collection licensing department at BMI for $16,000 a year, and just started and went out every single night to see bands. And then the people in the music department ended up, about a year or so later, moving me to become a secretary in the music department, and got really lucky and found a bunch of bands early on, became friends with them, helped shop them, get them record deals, and we took off there. And then it wasn't until years later when, if I hadn't gotten sick and had to take 2 or 3 months off from work, I would probably happily still be at BMI and working there.
Well, I think it's a testimony to you. You're a smart man. You're multifaceted. You're a great conversationalist. You're interesting, but you're a great listener too. And I think that's why you are involved in so many different facets of where songs go, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
and don't be humble.
Well, it was, that actually was a plan. And when I started writing, I knew that I liked to write different. I like so much different kind of music. I love country music. I love singer-songwriter. I love pop. I love classical and opera. And I also knew that if I could keep a good constant level of good lyric, good melody, that I could walk within some different worlds. And also, I love to travel. I love working with different artists in different countries. I just love making friends and people who do like what we do. And it just keeps it really fresh.
Well, speaking of different countries, Crazy for This Girl, Jaron, I always get it wrong. I say it backwards. Evan and Jaron Lowenstein. You wrote it with Jaron, and y'all write a lot. It had success in a lot of different countries.
Yeah, that one was a worldwide hit. Jaron, I give Jaron a lot of credit. He was the first guy to really get me to co-write. I wrote by myself basically till 33 or so, and he saw me play and said, what you're doing is what my brother and I want to do for our band. And I'm like, well, I don't really co-write. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'm going to ask you until you say yes. You don't know me, but that's me. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. And he kept calling me and calling me and calling me. And finally I said, look, I've got this verse chorus of a song. It was called How to Keep the Sky from Falling. And I said, I don't really have verses. If you want to try to write the verses, go for it. So I basically wrote it on a cassette, just played it for him, gave him the cassette. He called me 5 hours later.
Cassette.
Yeah, I know.
That may be but you know what? That should probably go in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
I miss them, man.
So do I. I have plastic bins of cassettes. I should spend like a day just going over some of the ideas on those cassettes, and there are probably all these great songs on there that I just started years ago. But he called me 5 hours later with 8 different verse ideas, like 8 different verses written. The guy, I'm like, wow, this guy's serious. And they were really good.
Mm-hmm.
And
they are.
And I said, you know what? Okay, let's do it. And he lived in Atlanta. I lived in New York. And so I said, well, look, I'm going to be coming down to Nashville to take a trip. And I said, do you want to meet me in Nashville? So he met me in Nashville. And we started writing, and we wrote a song called 3 Minutes and 59 Seconds of Fame, quote, Andy Warhol.
Right.
And those two songs ended up making a group that got them their first record deal. Then they ended up losing their A&R person, and you know what happens. It just didn't work out. They got dropped. And he said, look, we got dropped. Do you still want to write with me? I'm like, yeah, of course. You know, I love writing. You're my friend. So we wrote 3 more songs. He wanted to come to New York. And I said, well, I'm going to be in Martha's Vineyard that weekend with a bunch of my friends who are music industry friends, actually. We had rented a house up there. I said, if you want, we got an extra room. Come up. I said, as long as I go to the beach during the day, I can make a few hours to write. And we're going out for dinners at night. He came up, and he's like, do you have any ideas? And I said, well, I have this music thing and this idea that I started writing for my ex-girlfriend, but I never finished it. And I showed him, and that was crazy for this girl. We started writing it on a little porch of this house we rented in Martha's Vineyard. And we were so into it that when we drove back to New York, we basically dropped our bags off in my apartment, and we picked the guitars up, and we're like, we need to finish this song right now. And we finished it that night. So we started it in Martha's Vineyard, finished it 2 days later in New York.
The way it ended up wasn't how it started out, though.
No, you're right. The original vibe of the song was, you know, Jared and I both were, you know, had been with women where we're like, okay, wait a second, we can do this. You know, this could be it. And I remember looking over at my girlfriend at one point thinking, okay, I could be a husband, I could be a father, I can, you know, I'm cool with this. So the original line was, she's got me thinking about a family. So when they went to the label basically said, hey, look, you're changing she's got me thinking about a family to she's got me thinking about a fantasy. So Jaron called me and goes, hey, good news. I think it's going to be the single from our new record, but we got to change this line to she's got me thinking about a fantasy.
And normally, lots of times you can go, the execs want to change it. That worked, though.
Right.
That worked.
Well, I thought, okay, I get the fact that you have 2 gorgeous 25-year-old guys and they maybe don't want them saying thinking
Right.
about a family, but that just completely changed what the song was about. And I said, Jaron, you know I would never write she's got me thinking about a fantasy. I said, I can't do it. And he goes, Jeff, we're going to lose this cut. And I go, number one, I don't think we're going to lose the cut. I said, but you've got to sing this for the rest of your life. I said, do you want to sing she's got me thinking about a fantasy the rest of your life? And he goes, no. And Jaron's a strong guy. I mean, Jaron is he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met.
So you didn't change it?
We didn't,
Right.
no. So we didn't change it. So he went back to the label and he goes, okay, I'm giving you guys a week to come up with something that we both like.
Right.
And I said, well, that's fair. That's fair. Because I did understand the whole, you know, with that. I said, I'll tell you what, if we can beat it or we can come up with something that we're all happy with, I'll go for that. If not, I'm sticking to my guns. And Jaron, we came up with like 30 ideas and they all were bad. And then Jaron called me at 2 a.m. and he goes, how about Constantly? And I'm like,
Yeah, that's it. That's why I said it works, though.
Constantly works.
Okay, it works.
And I said, you know what? I can live with that, but I'll tell you what. When we do it live,
You're gonna do it.
last verse, put family in there. And Jaron goes, cool. So Jaron, he came through, and I'm glad they changed it. I'm glad it worked.
But what's so cool about it is, and I don't know this, but from listening to the song, I feel like Jaron channeled some specific person too.
Absolutely. No, you're spot on. One of the greatest things about when you write with someone, when you really click, is you can write a song where you're both writing about something that means something to you, and it translates into the same song. So Jaron had a specific girl in mind also, and I had someone definitely in mind. Like that whole second verse was about me almost losing my job at a company I worked at because a deal, it was out of our hands, and someone kind of just botched up a deal, and my boss and I were caught in the crossfire. And I came home that night and I was just like, oh my God, I have never lost a job in my life. In fact, if anything, I've always done great and I might get fired. And my girlfriend at the time said, Jeff, number one, they're not going to fire you. Number two, if they do fire you, you will probably wind up with another job at double the price a month or 2 later. And of course, I didn't feel that way. But she was right, actually. I got a job offer 2 months later from another company, and it was for double the salary. So that's where that whole line, I wish I knew now what I knew then. And like it's like you were the one, you know, when she basically held the sky up when it was falling down.
Well, I always like to ask this: did either of the girls know that was the inspiration?
Well, I can't speak for Jaron on that one because I don't know if he ever told her, but I see, I did run into, I won't mention her name,
Right.
a few years later, and she actually started the conversation with, because I've never given a girl a song in my life except for once, and I had written this song. It was one of the first songs I ever wrote, because remember I didn't do this professionally until I was
Right.
almost 34,
Right.
so she knew me as, for the company I worked at, but I just wrote for fun at like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. at night. And because I lived in New York and the apartments were about as big as this chair and the walls, I had to write all these these really pretty mellow songs because I couldn't play loud because they'd be knocking on my wall. So I wrote this song for this girl called Promise Me This, which was about how I wanted to be in a situation where I was with someone for a while, and that every year or so, I'd always be doing something that would surprise them. Like they wouldn't know, so they never completely knew, and there would always be something cool. So as the relationship progressed, it's like, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you can, And so I wrote that song, but I said, promise me that you'll never understand me, but you'll always hold me like you are now. And I gave that to her, and when I ran back into her, the first thing she said to me was, I can't believe you gave my song to Dawson's Creek. And then she looked at me and she goes, you ain't crazy for this girl? Really?
And that's the story this week, the story behind the song Crazy for This Girl for the Tennessean and the Tennessean.com. Let's hear some from Jeff Cohen.
Okay. And she talks over the sound of the cars that pass us by, and I don't know why, but she's changed my mind. Would you look at her? She looks at me, got me thinking about her constantly. She don't know how I feel. She carries on without a doubt, and I wonder if she's figured out I'm crazy for this girl.